All right, I'm just gonna say it, tripods might be one of the least sexy pieces of filmmaking and photography equipment just because they kind of just stand there and don't do much and sit statically. But at the same time, I think they're very undervalued, and if you don't have a good quality tripod, it can seriously hinder some shots that you wanna get. So today I'm gonna be talking about the Manfrotto BeFree Carbon Fiber Travel Tripod, which was kindly sent to me by the folks over at Manfrotto, and we're just gonna talk about why a tripod like this is so valuable in your kit. This tripod really showed up at the perfect time because with the trip planned to Yosemite, which is one of my favorite places in the world, just absolutely breathtaking, having this tripod that was lightweight and I could just carry around the valley easily was going to be perfect to capture some still frames of Yosemite. My goal for this little film about Yosemite was to just basically set my camera on the tripod and let the shots breathe and just capture the movement and essence of the valley without moving my camera. So no handheld like I usually do, no even panning or tilting like I usually do, just letting static frames tell the story. And I'm really stoked on the results I captured. It just has such a nice, slow moving pace that really captures the scenery in a beautiful way. And just working on specific compositions in framing with static shots is really enjoyable. So in this video, I'm basically just going to talk about my experience shooting that other film with this tripod and how it worked and operated in real use. And yeah, if you want to check out that other film, it's linked up here somewhere, and let's jump into it. So anytime I get a tripod or any filmmaking equipment, I start out a bit skeptical because I need to put it through its paces and see if it holds up. So with this one, I don't know. I just thought it might be another tripod that's not that great, so I jumped into it and started using it. For a travel tripod, there are several main characteristics it needs to hit for me to consider adding it to my permanent kit. And the first major one is weight. And this tripod actually delivers pretty well. It's carbon fiber and it's only 2.8 pounds, which is pretty much industry standard for tripods like this. There's a lot of tripods in the 3.5 to 4 pound category, and that just feels pretty heavy on a backpack. But at 2.8 pounds, it's pretty lightweight and I don't notice it too much. Obviously, a lighter tripod would always be awesome, but I think 2.8 pounds is just about a sweet spot where you don't really notice it too much. The second important category for a travel tripod is ease of use, because you're bringing it to a lot of remote locations and a lot of the time you might have to set it up quickly to capture a shot that's fleeting. So ease of use is very crucial. When I first saw this tripod, I was definitely concerned by these twist locks. I'm not a huge fan of them in general, and they can be a little bit finicky and take more time to set up than a snap lock. But with this tripod, honestly, I'm pretty impressed. I think I can twist and unlock each of these legs at about the same speed as a snap lock, and that's all I need. I mean, that's pretty good. Like, it's definitely not the fastest thing in the world, but it doesn't take too much time. Like, I'm able to set up this tripod pretty quickly, and that's all that matters. So the twist locks were not as big of an issue as I thought they might be. That being said, there are a couple other ease of use things on this tripod that are a bit more tricky for me to use. For example, flattening out the legs, where you bring out this little piece right here and bring it out. It just is a little bit clunky. It clicks in relatively nicely, but it feels a little bit cheap for the tripod. It's like the only piece of plastic I think on the entire tripod. So that's not the best in my opinion. And then also in terms of ease of use, I think my biggest critique with this entire tripod is just the ball head. It has good aspects, but my least favorite thing about it is just the locking mechanism on the top for your camera plate, because it uses a proprietary Manfrotto plate, and I just don't like that. Basically, the idea for the plate and the locking mechanism is good in concept. It essentially has a way that you can put your plate in, and before you even lock it down, the camera is secured, so it's not just gonna fall out. And I do like that little safety backup, but it can be a bit hard to get your camera plate into there and lock it down, and I just didn't like it. I had a few times where I couldn't even get the camera off of it, so I missed a different shot. And yeah, that's just not my favorite thing in the world. I'm a really big fan of just the traditional Arca Swiss compatibility, where you can just use it on every tripod system and make it work. So for example, usually when I'm traveling, I have the Peak Design plate on the bottom of my camera, and that can just easily clip into any Arca Swiss mount for a tripod really easily, and I don't have to switch the mount all the time. But with the mount on this tripod, I can't just clip it into my quick carry Peak Design on my backpack. I would actually have to change the plate, and when you're traveling, that's a big inconvenience. Another thing with the ball head is if you shoot video like me, the pan is not very smooth. It just doesn't have the nicest actuation there. And so it's a little bit hard to get panning shots that are very smooth if you want to use this tripod for video. That being said, the ball head does have something that's pretty cool and I haven't seen on other tripods, which is essentially a tightener for heavier weight cameras. So you can tighten or loosen the tension on the ball head, which allows you to use heavier loads and not have to worry about it just falling over with the weight of the camera. So that's pretty sweet, but definitely my biggest critique about this tripod is the ball head. The third category I look at for a travel tripod is stability, because if you're bringing this tripod out to remote locations where the elements might be a little bit hostile, you need this thing to hold its ground and not move around in the wind or rain or wherever you are. So stability is a really important aspect. I think this tripod really blows it out of the water with stability. It's surprisingly sturdy for the weight of the tripod and the skinniness of the legs. Like, look at this bottom leg right here. Look at that thing. You see how skinny that is? It's like, I look at that and I'm like, this should not be stable, but it is surprisingly sturdy even when fully extended. You can shake it and it just doesn't really move that much, and that's just fantastic, and I'm really stoked on that. This tripod technically has a 20-pound load limit, which is pretty high for a travel tripod that weighs under 3 pounds. And I think that really helps with the stability. So if you have a lighter camera package that's say under 5 pounds, it's just so sturdy for that because it's built for much higher payloads. And yeah, I really like that aspect of this tripod. The fourth category I look at for a travel tripod is the height it extends to, and this one isn't fantastic. Obviously you can see it's very small in the closed position, so that means it can't extend too high, but it reaches 59 inches with the center column extended. And you know, that's high enough for most things. When you're traveling, you don't need the highest tripod, but 5 feet isn't that tall for a tripod, so it can definitely limit some shots in specific situations, but for the most part, it's not that big of an issue, and it's a sacrifice I'm willing to take for a little bit of a lighter tripod. And finally, the fifth attribute I look at is price, because if a tripod is too expensive, I'm not gonna buy it and I'm not gonna recommend it to other people. So right now, this tripod is sitting at $266, down from $386, I believe, and that's a pretty good price, in my opinion, for a name brand like Manfrotto, a carbon fiber travel tripod under 3 pounds that's as stable as this one. Filmmaking and photography gear is always just expensive, and $266 seems like a lot of money, but by comparison, the Peak Design travel tripod, which is also carbon, also 2.8 pounds, and also extends the same height, is $600. So that's a little bit of perspective there, and this is definitely a better deal in my opinion. So yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say about this tripod. Like I said, tripods aren't super sexy, so there's not a lot to talk about, but I do think this tripod will be replacing my previous travel tripod in my kit that goes most places, just because it is so stable and it is so light. The only thing I might change is the ball head, which thankfully can unscrew, so I can just replace it with any other ball head. Yeah, I mean, I can just switch it with any other ball head and use my Arca Swiss plate, so I think that's what I'm gonna do with this tripod, but the legs and everything else are really solid. Obviously, this should go without saying, but even though they did send me this tripod, I have no obligation to say anything good about it, so all the opinions are my own, and I think it's a pretty solid product, I have to say. I would be honest with you if it wasn't. So yeah, links are below if you want to check it out, and I will see you all in the next video.